Hello, once again, everyone. It's been a few weeks, but welcome back to a new episode of the WayForward chat, coming to you the second Thursday of every month to bring you the latest WayForward happenings and discussions with creative game developers. I am your WayForward social media tinker bro Hoff, coming to you live from Matten's Garage, and we have had a busy couple of weeks, particularly with our booth at the SCV Collectibles Show in Southern California, where you can pick up some of our hard-to-find WayForward physical game releases and other goodies each and every Friday through Sunday. Plus, we had some big news out of LRG3 at the end of October, where we revealed that the next Shantae game is in development and unveiled the first console PC trailer for Sigma Star Saga DX, which is now scheduled to arrive early next year. So we're looking forward to talking more about both of those titles in the future, but yesterday happened to be the 1 year anniversary of the release of the River City Girls 2 Double Dragon DLC, which adds playable Billy and Jimmy Lee to the cast of RCG2. So we have a great episode and a great guest lined up for today. I am, of course, joined by my usual co-host, WayForward head of BizDev and Publishing, Adam Tierney, and
Hello.
also the voice of Jimmy Lee himself, the voice of Max from Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp. That is the one and only Arin Hanson, aka Egoraptor of the Game Grumps.
Hi. Wow. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here today, guys. I
Hell
will
yeah.
let you two take over from here. Before I do that, just let me shout out our sponsor, Dragon Kick Crystal Soda. No, I'm totally lying about that. But I do want to mention we will be taking questions later in the show. So if you have any questions for Arin or WayForward in general, just throw them into chat with a Q colon. We will do our best to answer them later this episode. But Adam, Arin, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And yeah, thanks Aaron for making time for this. We've loved working with you and I think people really dig hearing kind of a deeper chat on some of your work that you've done with us so far.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Yes, let's do that.
Let's do this. So the first question we always start with any guest is, what's your video game origin story? So what are some of the earliest video games you remember playing and loving? What really got you into video games?
I mean, it was ever since I was a kid. My dad brought home an NES when I was like, right when your like brain turns on and you're making memories. That's like right when I don't remember him taking home the NES. My brain turned on like days after the NES was already in the house. So I remember it being like this new thing, but I don't remember life without it. So it's sort of always been in my life. Dr. Mario, that sort of thing. Um, and I feel like there were various periods of my life where I was like re-engaged in a way that sort of made it a little bit more like, oh, it's just this thing that is a part of my life, but isn't necessarily like a huge part of my life. I think Mega Man X was like the next. When I first played that, I was like, oh, this is like my whole thing now. And then once I had a job and I bought a Dreamcast at a pawn shop, and got Jet Set Radio, I think like the sort of like ability to, have my own stuff, was huge. I mean, that was the game changer. That was like, oh, I'm a gamer. I think I wrote in my live journal even. I was like, I guess this means I'm a gamer now, because I was like 14 or something. So, uh, yeah, that's the long and short of my story.
Yeah, Dreamcast, I still think that's probably the best console to ever be released. It was just that first lineup, and Jet Set Radio is just a timeless game. You can play it now and it feels like it could have been made yesterday. It's such a flawless title.
Yes, 100%. And like so unmatched. I mean, Bomb Rush, of course, awesome, but man, like the creativity that was happening
Yeah.
at that time on another level.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so many of those games by that developer Smilebit were just so inspired and weird. They also did Typing of the Dead. They did a bunch of just like really crazy stuff, and I wish they were still around. Um, so we'll go through a couple of topics. One of them is obviously you've been a part of the Game Grumps since you guys were founded, I believe, in 2012, over a decade ago. Do you still enjoy streaming games each week? Is it still fun?
Oh hell no. No, I'm just kidding. It's awesome. I mean, it's you can't ask for a better job than that. Like it's the. Can I swear?
Of course.
Okay, it's the shit, dude. Like it rules. There's a lot of stuff like around being like an internet guy that I think is like, oh, okay, it would be nice to be known less. But the actual playing video games part of it is like, bro, it doesn't get much better than that. That's fucking sick. I count my lucky stars every day.
I remember one of the first episodes that I became aware of you, and really probably the main reason why I wanted you and Danny to be the Double Dragon brothers is I was watching when you guys were playing through Shadow of the Colossus, and spoilers, you were playing through the part, I think Danny was controlling it, and it was right before Agro would die, and you were just pumping him up like, man, isn't he such a nice horse? Don't you just love him? And then just like the way that he just started screaming and his voice dropped when it was going on. It was just, I love that dynamic between the two of you guys.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I like to make his life horrible in every opportunity that I can. I feel like I was gaslighting him before that was a popular thing to do.
You've also, in addition to playing games, now helping to launch some games through Game Grumps. You guys have released Dream Daddy. You've got Homebody coming out. I'm sure you guys get inundated with game developers reaching out to you guys wanting to do something. What made those two titles worth getting involved with? Why those two games?
Well, Dream Daddy was just like internal. I mean, that was at Game Grumps in general. I always just kind of was like, if anybody has an idea and like a passion behind that idea, like I will. It's usually a yes, right? And that was one of those. So that's how Dream Daddy came about. It was just kind of a producer at our company was just like, I want to make a game, and I was like, okay, great, let's try it. And luckily that ended up. It was almost like the naivete of like not knowing how in the trenches you have to be with game dev that that I think like kind of got it through the finish line because we were sort of figuring it out as we went. And then luckily it was this hit that was kind of like YouTube algorithm shit like ebbs and flows and stuff in terms of like income. And when that game came out, it was kind of like a difficult time because there was a lot of shifting on YouTube. So it sort of like helped the company a lot. So it was, it ended up being this, I don't know, like this beautiful flow of happenstance. But then with Homebody, so Homebody, the lead on that game is Jory Griffiths, who was the narrative designer on Dream Daddy, and he's just like one of my favorite people of all time. So he and I will get together and we'll just talk about game stuff, design stuff, and he's always had this idea of this game in the back of his head, and because like we kept him on staff for a lot of things, we were reporting Dream Daddy and support for Dream Daddy and stuff. It was just kind of like, if you want to work on this thing, and then sort of like pitch us this concept in its barest form, then we'll see what we can do. And so he basically designed, I don't remember if it was like the whole game or if it was just like a vertical slice in ink, and played through it, and I was like, this is pretty brilliant. We should absolutely do this. So it was kind of a really long process of like, we were sort of at the point where we were shutting down the game design leg because we had another game that we released, Soviet Jump Game, that like wasn't super expensive to make, but like just didn't hit, and it was also like a free game that had like cosmetic purchases in it, and so it was like it just, I don't even think it broke even. Maybe it did, but it was like, okay, making games is pretty expensive. We were also working on another game that just like never even got announced, and we put a lot of money into that, and it just sort of went away. So we were like, okay, no more game dev. It's a ton of money being sunk into something that we don't really, have a firm grasp on. We don't know if it's going to be a huge hit. So with Homebody, we partnered with Rogue. I want to say,
Yep.
I'm terrible with the business side of things, and they really helped it get across the finish line, and that was huge. So I guess to answer the question, was yes, we did after Dream Daddy, we got a ton of pitches from random people, and a lot of them. There's one in particular. I won't. It's not really. I guess I'll just whatever. It's not like it's. Well, one of them came out and became a huge success. It was Date Everything, right? They pitched that to us, like right after Dream Daddy came out, and we were like, it's good, but we just don't want to do another dating sim. We sort of don't want to be like a one trick pony. So that was like the main impetus for not doing that game. And so like we had a ton of pitches, some that were like completely out of our scope and some that were like pretty small. And in that round of pitches, Soviet Jump Game was the one we picked because it felt the most unique. And I had this whole idea for like a marketing campaign around it. So it's really just like, I don't know, what one part is this a good game, and one part like I just kind of dig it, like why not? Because we're not, again, we weren't in it to like make $1 billion or anything. It was purely like, even from the start, like somebody at our company wants to make something, so let's just make it and see if we can actually do that.
That's very cool. Yeah, a lot of the games that get greenlit within WayForward, it's just the same thing. It's just one of our directors or designers or animators just has some idea they get passionate about and just keep fiddling with it, and then eventually it just becomes a real thing. But yeah, you really can't tell when you put something out there. We've had titles that we just barely kind of said, okay, we'll do this thing, and it ends up being one of our biggest hits. And then we've definitely had some titles where, especially externally, they were offered to us and said, hey, do you want to publish this? And we just really weren't feeling it. And then of course they go on to be like the biggest thing in the world, but you just never know, unfortunately.
Yeah, 100%. And it's, I don't think I've ever had like an attitude about it or anything. Like it's truly like, I just like seeing when artists succeed and make cool things. It's nice. It's nice to see that. Yeah, so.
Totally. A lot of what you guys focus on Game Grumps is indie games. A lot of time, games people have never even heard of. What have you noticed in terms of recent indie gaming, like either trends or changes? Where do you think it's heading? How do you think indie games are changing right now?
That's interesting. I might not be the best person to sort of give a relevant take because I don't like keep up that much, but I do
just
feel
from
like
what you're aware of.
There's a lot of, I think it's cool that it's just like you can just get stuff out there, right? I feel like the beginning of that was like Xbox Live, where it was so easy to make independent games and just like put them up. And also, that was like Castle Crashers and Braid and all that. So nowadays it's like Steam, you can just throw it up on Steam, and it seems like with like the Switch as well, like it's super easy as far as I can tell to get stuff on the Switch. Like that marketplace is just like flooded with new titles every day. So I in terms of like, I just want to make a game and get it out there, it's like easier than ever. But I think in terms of like budget and everything, like games are expensive. And a lot of I think the creative industry in general is just like taking a huge hit. Like animation studios and everything are just kind of whatever. So in terms of like budgeting for an indie game, it's like, damn, that seems really tough. I'm glad I'm out of that game right now. But at the same time, I feel like moments like these are sort of like incubation for creative people. Like if creative people aren't working day to day, they're still going to be creative even if they are not working. So I suspect that there's probably going to be a pretty big wave of like super indie titles coming soon.
Yeah, I think, and also just the flood of how easy it is, like you said, to get a game out there to self-publish. I would hope that's just going to force ingenuity. I mean, just from people saying, "Well, I'm going to put it in the effort. I better make this stand out. I better make it unlike anything else out there." I've definitely seen some of the most interesting indie titles in the last couple of years.
Yes, 100%. And also, this is true of like YouTube as well, where you see titles that like you see the big titles, right? You see the Balatros, you see the Vampire Survivors, like you see those titles in front of you all the time. And they caught on for whatever reason, but when you see that all the time, you're like, oh, that's the way to succeed in this space. If you're looking to make it a job, or if you're looking to, make a big hit or whatever, or even just like be inspired to make a good game. It's like, clearly this game's good because people bought it. Like, what is good about it that made people buy it? So I think that sort of drives a lot of the industry too, where like I think probably a lot of indie devs, and again, I'm not an authority on this, but I think a lot of indie devs probably see those kinds of games and then are like, how do I make my game that I have in my mind more like that? Like, how do I make, I mean, roguelikes are fucking huge right now, right? Like, they're just everywhere. And there's even if the game's not a rogue light, I guess they call it now, then like, how do I put an element of that into the game, right? That's pretty huge. And I feel like that wasn't so much a part of it when all this big wave first started in the like Xbox Live days, where you were seeing a lot more attention on people like, I don't know, like Phil Fish or Jason Rohrer, who were like making more quote unquote artful games or whatever, where it was like, oh, it's getting really wacky and creative in this space. So I think that's probably different nowadays. But again, like, it's so much easier in general to just make games today than it was back then, just with like, engines and software that people have made and just shit like Ace Sprite and stuff. Like, it's so, the tools are all like very available. And so I imagine there are those kinds of creative people out there, but they're not getting as much attention as they were back then because they're sort of not like breaking new ground now. It's just sort of like
right.
there's a much bigger ocean for these people to thrive in, right?
Yeah, definitely in kind of the traditional publishing, even though WayForward is still indie, when we talk to publishers, it's all about like what is the retention and what is the long tier goals and what keeps people playing games forever. There's definitely a focus on all those elements, and I think that's why, like, no matter what your genre is now, you basically have some degree of roguelite elements in it. If you want it to reach a wide audience, it's definitely a shift in that direction.
Yeah, and especially like with just my experience, right? Like, I'm very busy. I work pretty much every day. And I don't have as much time as I used to play video games just like for fun, right? Like, I play on the show, and that's also fun, but that's like my job, right? So if I'm trying to leisurely play video games, um what I have found, especially because they're way more available, is that I'm playing a lot more games that are just sort of like on, and you kind of do some stuff, but it's not necessarily like this intense, involved mission with story or whatever. And I do it on Discord with like my brother and some friends. And that's how, I spend time with my brother, and that's how I just like get a lot of socialization in. So like, I'm not playing as many, single player experiences. I'm playing more stuff like Dune Awakening or like Arc Raiders or whatever, where we can just like get on, and even if we're not in the quote unquote playing the game, like, we're still in the menus, and I'm like managing my inventory, and we're just chatting and stuff like that. So I think that's also shifting a lot of, because games like that, uh, uh, that's tough to make as an indie, right? And so like to get that attention from people, like to pull people away from Fortnite and those kinds of games is a pretty big challenge, I think.
Yeah, and it really is kind of a communication tool. I've got a teen and a tween for my kids, and they just don't hang out with their friends. They like all them and their friends rush home and then hop on Roblox, Fortnite, whatever it is, and that's how they hang out with their friends now. It's all online, even though they know these people in real life. It's crazy.
Percent.
What about I was curious, so so much, especially for like the micro indies, like the two guys in a garage, doing their dream game. So much of those kind of is just such a lottery of getting attention on it, and sometimes it does just come down to, the Game Grumps decide to play something, or Markiplier or Jacksepticeye or something like that. Do you ever feel any like pressure to like get the word out on certain games, or I really want to get attention on this particular thing, or is it just more whatever you and Dan feel like playing on any episode?
I think I used to. That's a great question, by the way. Because that's something that was a factor in when we were making games. Um, because when we were getting more serious about like, oh, maybe we should take on some more games. I took interviews with like everybody that I knew in the game space, like professionally. Whether it was like people who make games, or like directors or producers, or like even people that just were at publishers. Um, and one of the questions that I asked everybody was, how much does it matter to you that or if we're talking about like IP ownership, right? Like if we
Yeah.
produce and publish something as like a Game Grumps game, right? Uh how much percentage of ownership over the project does it matter that we are Game Grumps and not just like game game guys LLC, right? Like
Mhm.
how important is it to you that we have this platform that we can utilize? And it was like it was all over I was getting things all over the map, but it was almost like less than 10%. There were some people that were like, it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters at all. A game is a game. It'll catch on if people like it. If it has a proper marketing campaign. But you know, some people were like, I think if you, as Game Grumps, went and made a game and were like, hey, this is the game we're making, come and play it. Some people were convinced like that wouldn't even sell a single copy, right? And
Interesting.
I obviously I think that's like hyperbole, but I kind of have come to the conclusion that I think that that's true. I think games have a moment, right? There's a bit of lightning in a bottle about every game release. Um, so whether or not there are companies like Glitch, for example. I don't know if you know Glitch Productions.
Yep.
They have a YouTube channel where they make shows on YouTube.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
they as a brand have gotten to that point where it's like they will release something and people will watch it, like no matter what it is. Obviously, like if something it really catches on, people will watch more. But I think like baseline, when they release an episode of something, it's gonna hit like, you know 700, 800,000 views on a video. But I think for us, like we're not really known as like hit makers in the space. So like a Markiplier for sure. I think if Markiplier played a game and was like, I like this game, I think it would sell a pretty noticeable amount of units. But our position in the space, I don't know that that's true. But I know that it's true if it just like hits on something. If it like makes sense for us, if like we
Right.
are really having fun playing it, if like we make some fun joke about it, or so like we can turn it into a thing or whatever. Like I think that's what really matters, is just the resonation of all those little strings.
Well, and there's kind of chicken and egg with it too, right? And in so much as like, a game can become well known after it gets streamed. Like I think famously, Among Us was out for 2 years before anybody noticed it. But then also, it's usually when a game starts getting that kind of heat and that interest that more people do stream it, right?
Yes, 100%. And it's funny that you mentioned that because that's like I feel like that's such a point for a lot of developers where it's like, oh, we didn't. I mean, I say it about Homebody. Like we released Homebody, I want to say like 2 years ago. And when we released it, it was like critically a sensation. Like every professional outlet uh who reviewed it fucking loved it, like was over the moon, was like, wow, what a smart and clever dissection of OCD. We had this like very, very sweet Kotaku article that was fully written about it that was like, you have to play this game, it's so fucking smart. And yet, like, it didn't really catch on. So we constantly say, like, oh, we can't wait for the Homebody Among Us moment, where people like are like, well, what the hell? Like, why did nobody? I'm gonna shout from the rooftops how good this is, because
Yeah.
there's sort of this vibe of like when you release a game, it's like, oh, I'm trying to get out there and I'm trying to get everybody's attention and stuff, and it's like, what are you selling? But when it's been out for a certain amount of time, then it's just like this thing, and it almost feels like an underdog at that point.
Right.
Which I think people really attach to, right?
Oh yeah, for
So,
sure.
um, God willing,
Yeah.
there's a moment like that for Homebody.
Well, yeah, keep getting the word out. I mean, since I've been involved in the publishing of the WayForward stuff, it's like the answer is do everything. It's like, whenever we try and reverse engineer it of like, well, we've got this IP or we've got, this whoever's involved with it or it's this type of a game, it's usually just like the ones that just have everything you could possibly imagine and we're pushing them all in every way you could imagine that do hit. And we've never been able to like boil it down to just like one or two things.
Yeah, and truly, there is an attention economy of all of it. We,
Definitely.
just with doing Game Grumps, um we've done the same thing for almost 14 years now, where we just make a long form episode, a gameplay episode that's unedited for the most part, every day, and that's just what we do. And that's not really how people watch stuff on YouTube anymore. Um, and we have our like diehard fans who are like my fucking rock stars. Um, but getting the word out about Game Grumps is like really difficult in that structure, right? So when we release an episode, right, like we're very precious about it. Like this is an episode and this is what it's called and this is what the thumbnail is and it's this thing that's chronicled and archived. But now Game Changers or Dropout's a great example where they will just do clips of moments from their show and they'll like actually visually restructure how the show looks and how the information is presented to be a short. And then you'll find when you look at their shorts channel, they'll release the same short like 5-6 times with like
Right.
slight tweaks, but they won't like delete the old short and replace it.
Right.
They'll just re-upload it, even just like a couple days later, because it's like nothing's really precious anymore when it comes to just people getting it in front of people's faces.
Right.
They're
Yeah,
just
I've
scrolling on
noticed as I look on either TikTok or Instagram and I'll see something that's brand new, I'll say, "Oh, this person's really interesting. I like what they do." And then you go to their channel and there's like 50 micro iterations of the same thing just over and over and over. It's like, okay, that's the one video that got millions of views.
Yes, yeah, 100%. And I'm sure, especially with like the tools that are available and how people, I feel like I feel like in like the 90s and the early 2000s, people who are making games or just like in any creative space weren't thinking about any of that stuff. They weren't thinking about like the color of the thumbnail of the ad or like they're just trying to make a game, right? But now
Oh
I feel
yeah.
like the language of like click through rate and stuff is sort of like the everyman kind of knows that
Yeah,
stuff
no,
now.
there was no. I started directing games, I think around 2005, and I did like an X-Men game and a Justice League game, and yeah, that's all it was. It's just like, oh, okay, we've got our budget, we've got our time, let's make a cool game. I think the only external thing you were worried about is like, what is IGN going to rate it or something like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
no component as far as like social media or attachment rate or any of that stuff back then. It's a hell of a lot more complicated now for sure.
Yeah, and if you're working for a big company like a Capcom or whatever, like they have an entire team that handles that stuff.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
devs are just the devs, and then marketing is marketing. But like as an indie developer, you know, you could have 3 people on the team, and what is one of them like the marketing guy? No, like you're all working on stuff together. So you sort of have to speak all these different languages, which is very difficult. But I also feel like, creates new, interesting perspectives on those kinds of things. Um, because at a Capcom, I mean, I don't know this for sure, but it seems like one hand isn't talking to the other, where like they're just making the game and then the marketing guys are over here trying to market the game. But like if the team is so small and you're all handling all this together, it's like, oh, why don't we add this little moment in the game that would make a good YouTube short or whatever? That I think is a pretty interesting way to to do things and to market things, and like consider that a game is a thing. It is a piece of media that is out there, and it's not like this bubble of it's only the game that exists in this world and the experience that you're playing it. Like, no, it's a game is also people posting on Twitter about it and people drawing fan art and people like theorizing about things, and you know what I mean? Like that
Exactly.
also
Yeah.
is part of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go a little bit more on your stuff that you've done for WayForward. So let's start with the Double Dragon Brothers. You voiced Jimmy Lee, uh, and love the role, the performance you gave as him, and then of course Dan Avidan is Billy Lee. Were you into Double Dragon? Back on the NES and SNES. Do you like what was your relationship with these characters in this series before you guys got a chance to voice them directly?
I mean, I feel like everybody who grew up in that era has at least some relationship to Double Dragon. Like it's so iconic. Um, but yeah, I mean, I that like 80s, early 90s aesthetic of like dudes with denim jackets with the sleeves cut off, like so sick. Like every time I just see a character that is designed that way, like my neurons activate, and I'm like, oh, he's cool. You know, I mean, I was a huge Final Fight fan, and just beat 'em. I had a moment in my life where like beat 'em ups were like the genre. Um, so yeah, like Double Dragon is like that's the one.
That's awesome. And you guys, in addition to voicing, we got you to do the Lee Brothers rap for the River City Girls 2 DLC. Thank you so much for making time for that. It came out so good. What was that like? I mean, you and Dan and working with Brian, you guys do so much music, so many albums, but I mean, this is one where you're not doing an homage, you're not doing a parody, you're doing like an official work with the official characters for the official publisher. Have you done anything like that? And was that different at all, or was it pretty much just the same as when you do videos entirely on your own?
Man, that was a trip. Because it's I mean, in terms of like my involvement with it, like it was effectively just like a Starbomb song, which is, my video game comedy band, where I'm not like a musically talented person in terms of the melodies and everything. Like I can write a rap rhythm that's like okay and doesn't sound like garbage. So getting the track and then writing the lyrics it was like, oh, we're doing this again. Like it was first of all, it was super fun. And also like when you do a song like that, it requires a lot of research. And I hadn't played every Double Dragon game ever made. So like looking into, like the brother, like the third Double Dragon brother that was like it was such a rich well to mine from of just like gags, because it goes in so many different directions, just in the few games that have been made of Double Dragon.
And bonus, anything that you came up with in those lyrics is now canon. It's all part of the Double Dragon Lee Brothers mythos officially.
Oh God, I didn't even think about that.
So
That's crazy.
the discussions of milk and Billy loving cats and stuff.
Well, I mean that was taken purely from like actual. I just thought it was funny that like I found I don't remember what game it was from or like what publication it was from, but there was like an official thing that was like Lee Brothers bio. Jimmy loves fighting and training and winning fights, and Billy's was just like, he likes tea, and it's like what the hell? So I just ran with that concept. And yeah,
it was so
cat
fun
thing
to.
was new.
Yeah, the cat. I think you said that the milk thing. You actually saw that somewhere, right? Like
Yes, it was I believe it was milk and line dancing was like the official one.
That's incredible. And of course, the other character that you did for us is Max from Advance Wars. The Advance Wars series has always been very dialogue, character driven. Was that intimidating? I mean, there's Double Dragon, but then there's doing, voice for an actual Nintendo published game. What was that like? And were you a fan of that series before you did that voice?
Yeah, I mean, that was like my era, was like when Game Boy Advance first came out, and like all my friends were, we were playing Pokemon, we were playing Advance Wars, we were playing Golden Sun, and like that was like peak lunchroom shenanigans, right? So yeah, that was amazing. And I would say like when I was a lot younger, especially around voice work, I would get pretty intimidated when a job came on. My first job ever was on Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2, and I got that role through like a contest that they were doing. And I just remember, and you can hear it in my voice in the lines, like I just remember being so fucking nervous. And but now it's like, I'm in my late 30s and I've been doing this a while, so getting that role was just like, it was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, hell yeah, I want to go do a good job. Like, I'm gonna bring my A game, So that was sick. And also, like, I knew a lot of the people that were, I knew Christina, who was voice directing. So it felt very like comfortable and like, oh, I'm used to this. Like, this is nice. That was a very like easy record. It was just like everybody was having a good time, and clearly they were digging what I was putting down. So it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it came out great. I mean, like you said, that entire cast, I mean, was just some of the best folks we've ever worked with. And also I think it was interesting because, we didn't, the dialogue existed, like these were remakes. So, things got tweaked a little bit, but like all these characters, all these personas are, 20, almost 25 years old. So fans are like super passionate about who they are and what they sound like and everything. But there was really high stakes on that stuff. But I thought you guys all did a fantastic job and really, really brought the best comedy, the best heart and personality and just everything to every line. You guys just completely nailed it. I thought your Max was awesome.
Oh, thanks, man. That means a lot. I appreciate that.
Last thing, I mean, we've talked about music, we've talked about VO. You're also a very accomplished animator as well. You've done key animation on a lot of your earlier music videos, a lot of shorts. Do you still find time to animate nowadays with everything else that you've got going on? And also, like, what do you enjoy most? Do you enjoy like when you're doing everything top to bottom on a work, like the VO and the music and the animation, or do you like doing less of that and collaborating more with people? What are you like as a creator, as an artist?
I think it's really just every different project brings something interesting and fun. And I try to like see it for what it is. Um, because I think I did think in terms of what you're asking for a lot of my life. It's like, oh, I like this aspect of animating, but not this aspect. But now I sort of look at it as this whole, because there's so much more to it. There's like the people involved, how we communicate, like how, giving notes is, or, what the characters look like and how fun they are to animate and stuff. So I try to just take it in as it comes and enjoy the experience as a whole. To answer your question, in terms of if I'm animating a whole lot lately, no, but I recently like sort of like trimmed down all of my projects because I'm just like I got fiddly hands. Like I gotta just keep making stuff.
Oh yeah, I think most
But
people do when you're a
yeah,
creator.
but when you are doing stuff, like my calendar's insane, right? So when I'm doing stuff that's like I have to do, um, you know, it doesn't leave a lot of time for me to like get bored, which is like when the best stuff happens, creatively. So I made an effort to just be like, okay, what can I trim out so that I have this time to just sit. And so for a little while, uh, like right when that happened, I got involved in a Mega Man 5 for the Game Boy, like fan remake,
Hmm.
for uh redone in Mega Man 7 graphics. And it was pretty serendipitous because I had just done like a run cycle, where I was like, I always hated the run cycle in Mega Man 7.
Hmm.
Um, and I reanimated it to be more like what I would like to see. And then that was like, oh, there's some guys who are working on a Mega Man 7 fan game. Like, why don't you come into the Discord and like maybe like do a couple animations? So I did like a, a pretty sizable amount of animations for that project, and then I signed on to a much bigger one that I can't really talk about right now, but uh, that took up all my time, and so now I'm back to like doing more. It's very creative work, but I'm not animating. But I have been doing a couple like storyboards and stuff, so that's been really fun. But I love anim, like I just love it. It's fun. It is one of my favorite creative things to do because it is really like the three things that I really love about creative work, which is like nose down, full concentration, um, being creative in the way that you just like do things from the get-go, and then problem solving. And it all happens like in the same quick cycle where, you'll draw 3 frames and then you're like, oh, this doesn't work. How do I fix this? How do I make this look smoother? How do I do I have to completely redo it again? Does this even work for the movement of the scene? Like there's just so much like quick decision making you have to do in animation, and also you just get to be in it. Um that's so much fun for me.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that you haven't left it behind, that you're still looking for opportunities to do that.
Yeah, it's just like we're human beings and there's only so much time in a day.
Yeah.
There's a lot of I know like I got my reputation from doing animation, but I was doing a million other things too that like didn't take off, right? Like I was writing music, I was writing stories, I was sculpting and stuff. And that's stuff that I didn't really share online, so people get this sense of like, oh, he is an animator. But
Right, right.
that was just something that caught on.
I think people like compartmentalizing people. Like, I know what you are. You're in this box. You're in this box, and they get a little confused when when you're kind of all over the place. But
Yeah,
uh,
well, people see, I would say like people know more characters than people, right?
yeah,
I mean the average person, like if you could quantify the amount of like quote unquote people someone's met, uh it'd be like 80% characters in movies and video games and books, and then like 20% actual people. Because you really only know like 15 people in your life. And then you're just inundated with characters that are like very two-dimensional in that like there's these three things about them. They're
Right.
quirky and weird, and but it's like, I don't know, sometimes I'm quirky and weird, and then sometimes I'm very like buttoned up for other things, like people are very
Yeah.
malleable.
Oh, that's very interesting. So we're almost out of time. We're going to do a couple of listener questions. Before we get to that last question, we ask all of our guests. We're always getting hit up by our fans and basically wondering how they can, make games for professionally, how they can animate professionally, how they can, become a voice actor professionally. You're so multifaceted. Pick any one of those: voice actor, musician, animator, whatever you want. What advice would you give to somebody who is doing any of that as a hobby and wants to become a professional at it, make it their job?
Oh, a professional. Great question. Your questions are so specific.
Well, I wrote them down ahead of time.
Yeah, just like really great. Anyway, bravo on that. If you're turning a hobby into a profession, um,
Or just anybody, like if somebody wants to be, do a voice in a video game, what's a piece of advice you might give them?
I would say if I only had one, I would say that when it comes to doing things professionally, um, the the pie chart of how much effort you need to put into things, the slice for like people skills grows a tremendous amount.
Mm,
Because there's no world where you're going to be working in a complete vacuum on your art like you are when you're doing it as a hobby. Like you have to talk to clients, you have to talk to people you're collaborating with, you have to, know how to talk to an audience if that's the case, right? Like so I would, if I'm hiring somebody to do a creative job for me, um I care so much less that they are like the absolute best at what they do, and care way more about that they're like good in the room and they know how to communicate well and they take notes, um and don't have an ego. That sort of thing is like way more important to me. Like every day of the week I will choose the person who's like can just get the job done and it's okay, but they're awesome in the room, than the savant, right? Who like, is tough to email back and forth with, or like ghosts every so often, right? Like that stuff will kill your career so quickly. Um, because people will remember like, oh, this guy was really easy to work with and turned in his work on time. Like, let's work with him again,
and it's just
as
fun.
opposed.
It's just fun to work with them. And yeah, 100%. I mean, I think of all of the animators, all the designers, even all the voice actors we worked with, and you do run into those where it's like, well, there's a lot of talent there, but they're just kind of difficult to work with, or they're kind of unreliable, and in spite of the talent, we end up not working with those people. But we always go back to the people that are just a pleasure to collaborate with.
Yes, 100%. You can feel like you can see that in, especially in like the forward facing stuff where like you have a director that always works with the same actors or whatever, and it's like, yeah, because it's not it's not as if like these people are like perfect for the role or whatever. It's just like
Right.
they know when push comes to shove that they're going to get a fucking good performance out of them, and they know how to talk to each other, right? Like that's so important, especially in creative work. Because you know, creativity is so um subjective that I feel like so many people are so, they don't want to like hurt people's feelings, right? Um so I've seen a lot of people even in stuff that I've worked with, where I am working for somebody else and I hand in work, and then I'm just like catching the vibe that they're just kind of saying okay because they don't want to be like, this isn't what we wanted. And I have to step in and be like, it sounds like you're not happy with this. I'm here to do a job, right? And and then they're like, oh, thank God, you broached that subject. Like, let's get into it then. That is so valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and again, thank you so much for all the jobs you've done for us. Especially River City Girls. When we finally got Billy and Jimmy as playable characters, we rewrote every single line, and you and Dan just plowed through that with just the absolute best performances, but also just doing thousands of lines in a couple of sessions. I can't thank you enough. You guys just absolutely killed it on that, and it's so hysterical. So thank you again, and I hope we can work together on many, many more projects in the future.
Man, I hope so too. Yeah, that was like such a fun record. I love it when there's like a million lines. It's just like,
yeah, we actually we had more shared lines on the base characters, and then we kind of got a little bit of shit from the fans saying, "Oh, it's not all unique." So I did rewrite every single line of Billy and Jimmy. Like, there's no shared lines from the originals, and you guys killed it. If you have a few minutes, do you mind doing some listener questions?
Oh, of course.
Cool. All right, Hoff, do we have any questions?
Or do we ever? Let's see. I'll start with this one from @DoodleDoop, who asks, "Does Arin have enough time to play newer RPGs like Octopath Traveler?"
Hell no. But the want is there. Octopath Traveler is definitely like on the list of games that I'm interested in playing. But it's like, it's so tough to find like a consistent amount of time to do stuff like that. So what'll end up happening is I'll just play Chrono Trigger again, and like when I turn it back on,
Understandable.
after like 2 months of not playing it, I'm like, oh, I know where I am. I know Chrono Trigger. So that's sort of what the experience has been. So the answer to that is no.
Understandable. I think about Chrono Trigger probably every day. Next
Yes.
one is from @Yagoshi300. "Hey Arin, what's your favorite Double Dragon game?"
Probably the NES one, just because I know it's not the best one, but it's just like the
First one or the
most.
second one?
The first one.
Okay.
It's just like, it's so nostalgic and iconic, that like I just that's the one I'll pick up. If I'm like, I want to play Double Dragon, like I'll play the first one for the NES.
The versus mode is so bad. It's such a bad versus mode, but it's so charming at the same time.
Yes, exactly. And like the game's so fucking hard.
Mm. All right. The next question is from @DownWithTariffs, who asks, "If you had to make a video game based on Mr. Bean, how would you make it?"
uh
Hoff asking the
wow.
hard hitting questions.
That is such a fun, creative conundrum. My first thought is like something like Ghost Trick, right? Where there's just like this sort of Rube Goldberg-y series of events that you have to
Oh,
trigger.
Ghost Trick name dropped.
Yeah. Because that's, it's all like slapstick comedy of like, he's put in a situation where there's two like opposing forces that he has to like mitigate. So that's probably what I would do.
A lot of clever sequence of events. Yeah, I think that's a good
yes, like a lot of like physics juggling. Yeah, that's a really fun idea.
Okay. Next one is from @Vixie Kitsune, who asks, "Remember an old Game Grumps episode with the Mega Man 2 where you had to choose Flashman or Crashman, then you and Dan came up with other similar boss names? Any other cool bosses you want to create?"
I think we did them all, man. That was a well that was fully tapped. Mustache Man. Did we do that one? That one's pretty good.
Sounds like a good boss.
Mm-hmm.
Easily defeated by Razor Man, probably.
Oh, that's good. That's a good weakness.
Yeah, that's the
weakness
combo.
wheel.
At Samarus HHH says, "Hey, hi Arin. Does it feel surreal the positive impact you have made on so many, myself included, as well as the wide-scale impact your work has made, such as sequelitis being shown in college classes?
Yeah. Well, hi Sam. Sam always shows up to my streams and stuff. She's very sweet. Um, I yes, of course. There's an aspect of like doing this where it's so much a part of my life that I do compartmentalize that part. So like the work is the work, and then the effect it has on people is like a different thing entirely in my brain. Um, but yes, 100%. And it's always apparent too when I get to like see people in person. I feel like when you read words on a computer screen or a phone that people have said, you don't. It's like it's not real. Um, but then when you meet somebody who's like, clearly uh, very affected by just even getting the opportunity to meet me or whatever is like, wow, this is it's real, that I can read on this person's body and face like is real, right? So that's huge. And just like knowing, I will get emails from people saying, oh, I was having a hard time in life and this one playthrough or whatever really helped me. Like it's so easy to get cynical about like all I'm doing is fucking playing video games. But when you're spending when somebody's spending like 30 minutes a day effectively like hanging out with you, like that's huge, right? Like
Mhm.
my best friend isn't curing cancer or anything. He's just coming over and we're playing board games. But like that is something that's probably like more important to me personally than most things in my life. So that's yes. The answer to your question, Sam, is yes. It does mean a lot to me.
All right, good answer. We are coming up on the hour here. Do you have a little more time to answer a few more?
Sure.
Okay, then the next one is from @Digipen92, who asks if Billy and Jimmy Lee from Double Dragon join Super Smash Brothers after Ultimate, do you think you'll possibly return at voicing Jimmy Lee in the next Smash Brothers game?
Oh my God. Well, that's not up to me. So the answer to that question is an enthusiastic yes. I would love to do that. I would love to voice them again at all. Like the fact it's still sort of not real in my head a little bit that like these are characters that when I was a child I was playing the video game of and like knew them by name and
Mhm.
knowing that we're in some capacity the voices of these characters is insane to me. So yeah, that would be awesome.
I feel like WayForward is slowly inching our way towards just doing another full Double Dragon game. So I think we just need to make that happen at some point and definitely
Yeah,
get you
fingers
and Dan back
crossed.
for that.
Oh my God, that would be incredible. No pressure, obviously, but damn, that would be sick as hell.
Well, now the pressure's on. Next question is from Back on NG, who asks, "What's your consistent favorite pixel art in a game that you've played?"
Oh, bacon. Wow. I know so many people that are asking questions. Sorry, repeat the question. I was just thinking about how much I love him.
What's your consistent favorite pixel art in a game that you've played?
Um, wow. Awesome question. I think the game, it's not my favorite. Uh, it's up there, but I think the game that just has the best, most consistent pixel art, just from all angles, like it's clean, the aesthetics really nice, everything works together really well, is the Minish Cap.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, that's
it's just like,
gorgeous.
oh, it's such a pretty like every screenshot you see it, you're like, ah, it's so adorable, like it's bright and colorful and like even there's a thing with Game Boy Advance, which I'm sure you know, that like a lot of the games that were made for Game Boy Advance were like pushed brighter, just because the screen is like faded on
Mhm.
the physical Game Boy.
Yeah.
And that's one of those games where like it looks good on the physical Game Boy, and also when it's pushed brighter, it still looks really good. Um, because it just like makes sense for the game to be that bright. Uh, that would be my definitive answer. But when I think about like my favorite, I'm like, man, that's a tough one.
Yeah, especially
A
in
lot of
the
games, hard to narrow
animation.
down.
The animation in Minish Cap 2, I don't think Zelda animation has ever looked as gorgeous and has as much personality as that.
Yeah, and it's 100% that, and it's also just like that everything goes so well together. Like when it comes to sprite art, I was always obsessed with like the fighting game era from like 98 to like 2006 or something. The King of Fighters of the world, the Fatal Furies, like Fatal Fury Real Bout 2, the new character, I think there's like two new characters in that game. Rick Stroud, his sprites are so fun, and like the movement's so fun, and he's really meaty, and I love, but it's like that whole game, like there's a little bit of jank because there's like older sprites in it, and I feel like that's pretty consistent throughout a lot of the fighting games. Like I think of like Capcom versus SNK 1, where Capcom versus SNK 2 had 3D backgrounds, and it was also they were being rendered at 640 by 480, I believe, when the sprites were done at half that. So it looked a little weird, even though the actual sprite art was like brilliant. But the first one, the backgrounds were 2D and they were still 640 by 480, but the sprites just looked really good on them, because they were also two-dimensional graphics. Not perfect, obviously, because of the discrepancy between the pixel sizes, but like that game I always admired about how gorgeous, like particularly the SNK sprites were. Like the Iori sprite is like so, like it just moves really well, and it's like the way that the light sort of splashes on the characters in like these big fun shapes, like beautiful. um yeah, I could go on about I could list like 100 games.
And now you're making me go play the Capcom Fighting Collection as soon as this podcast is over.
I mean, they were
Um,
just like the kings of that aesthetic. Like even
yeah,
though the Alpha series, and that's a whole thing entirely where they're like those games were like wider screen and they made the sprites fatter so that like when it appeared on the 4x3 CRT it like looked right. But like they're so fun. They look like moving cartoons, even though they're just sprites. They were just like so good about pushing that aesthetic to its limits, in that form.
yeah, totally. I will move on to the next question, though, from at Calphimosis, who asks, "Hey, Aaron, is there any certain hobbies you picked up recently, interests and stuff? Hope you're having a good day. Love you."
Hobbies. Definitely a lot more card game stuff.
Hmm,
I've been getting really into like dead card games,
okay.
and just like card game stuff in general. I mean, that's something that I think a lot of people know because I've been in a lot of Magic the Gathering shows. But I think that's definitely the first thing that comes to mind. I'm always like cooking. I love to cook. Uh, yeah, just
Right
anything
on.
that tickles my little brain.
Along those same lines, at Kaiser GX asks, "You ever got into gardening?"
Yes. I The thing about gardening is I really enjoy it. But that's something that, just the way that I am is difficult, because it requires a tremendous amount of consistency. And I am not consistent at all. So like I'll have like a week where I'm just like, yes, like learning everything about like seasonal stuff and like the pH of soil, and I'm like, this is awesome, and then I just get caught up in something else, and then I'm like, oh whoops, I forgot to trim my basil plant and now they're bolting like crazy. That's that's just how it goes in this house.
Yeah, poor little fella. Next one
Hmm.
is from at the Flaming One Up, who says, "Hey, Aaron, what is your favorite WayForward game series?" I swear I'm not the Flaming One Up.
um I gotta tell you, uh, maybe this. I guess I don't know because this is something that I completely had an independent experience of, um, without letting y'all know. But the Mummy Remastered
Hmm.
is
Demastered.
demastered is fucking sick. Uh, I beat the shit out of that game, and like loved every second of it. That was the first thing that came to mind for me.
Yeah,
Um,
that one's got good staying power. Whenever we do sales and
Hmm.
people experience it for the first time, I think it's also because it's tied to a movie that was essentially a flop. It kind of creates a weird juxtaposition between the two. But yeah, I really having done nothing other than helped pitch it. That I think that is one of our better games as well.
I don't know if this game invented the concept, but I feel like the like having to fight yourself as a mummy after you've died was just like so awesome. Like what a great like core mechanic that really added a tremendous amount of texture to the experience. Um,
Oh, nice. I came up with that. That was in the original pitch.
so cool. And then also Mighty Switch Force is just like I played every single one. Like they're awesome.
Oh, nice. All right, cool. Thank you for saying
Very cool.
so. Uh,
Yeah, of
Next
course.
question
Always a fan.
from Edwin Makes Game says, "Hi, Aaron. If you were hired by WayForward with the power to get any IP for the studio to make a game on, what IP would you try to grab? What kind of game would it be in WayForward's hands?"
I I'm so fascinated by every the answer is Sonic the Hedgehog. Um, I'm so fascinated by everybody's take on this subject, especially game designers. Um, because it's like it's so obviously this thing that's like of its time. You know, we're all very nostalgic for it. They've tried to experiment with different ways to do it, to make the core idea of a little blue guy that runs really fast and collects rings. Um, like how I don't feel like it's ever been nailed. You know, I think Sonic Mania is very good and it's very like the best that that thing can be. Um, but like I still feel like there's a perfect Sonic game out there that nobody has discovered, and I just I would just love the opportunity to talk to a bunch of very smart people about that idea.
That's interesting. Definitely one that we've tried to go after over the years.
Please keep doing that.
All right, pressure's on again. Okay, and this might be our last one. Is from at Milo Charming yeah, at Milo Charming Magician, who asks, "Do you prefer the Shantae pixel art style or the HD hand-drawn style with 3D backgrounds, or HD sprites with 2D layouts in Shantae 7 Sirens?"
I don't think this is a great question. Um, I don't think anyone has truly nailed the like upscale look. Um, I think the inherent relationship that like a lower resolution pixel art has to like hand drawn, obviously like stepped animation where it's like, you know, the animation's drawn at a frame rate that's lower than the game is operating on. Um, I think the relationship that it's like, how do I put it succinctly into words? If you have 20 pixels, right? When one pixel moves to another pixel on the screen, it just looks like it jumps, right? Like it's not smooth. Um, and there's something to that that I feel like just works really well with hand-drawn animation that's not interpolated at all. And then when you start interpolating movement in an HD game, but have hand-drawn animation that's done on twos or on fours or whatever, it just doesn't look quite right. Um, and that's not even talking about like, you know, uh, compositing and like how aesthetically drawings live in the space. So it's always going to be pixel art every day, hands down, for any situation like that. But I think there's a solution. I think there's a way to do it. I just don't know what that way is.
Yeah, it's funny. We
Okay.
keep thinking that pixel art is done, and then we keep getting new opportunities. We're working on pixel art games right now that haven't even been announced. But as long as people want them, we'll keep making them.
Yeah, it's like it's a thing. I think it's always going to be a thing because it was a thing. There's always going to be a cycle of nostalgia, and also, it's a limitation that a ton of very talented artists had to deal with, and then ended up figuring out how to make it look good in that space. And now we have it, right? Like, if we never ever had to make pixel art in the history of humanity and went straight to like HD stuff, nobody would, like, that's weird. Why would you make a game with a bunch of mosaics, right? That would be like a when somebody tries to make a movie look like Van Gogh paintings, like it's just a very strange, like, off the beaten path thing. But like, it's a thing, and it's a thing that many of people's favorite games have. So now people want it, and they'll always want it, I think.
I think there's a timelessness. In fact, it's funny. You mentioned Mummy earlier. I remember when we were talking with Universal, that was kind of one of the topics, was like, well, if we do it pixel art, it kind of has that timeless element to it, as opposed to, like, look at like a 3D game, an average licensed 3D game from 10 years ago, 20 years ago. They do not age well, as that stuff advances. But with pixel art, it really is. It's forever.
There is an irony to that, I think, because I agree with you for the most part, but now, all the kids that grew up and their first games were PlayStation games are now making games
Yep.
in that aesthetic, right? And then now that's kind of a timeless aesthetic.
That's been so trippy, yeah, seeing the Crow Country and Hat in Time, seeing like that N64 PS1 era is now the retro gaming.
Yes, exactly. So, like, again, it's not like inherent to have like shapes made out of polygons and stuff, but it's a thing that existed for years. So now it's a thing. Like, a bunch of artists figured out how to make that look appealing. I still think like Mega Man Legends is just like this very aesthetically beautiful game, not even considering like, oh, for the time or whatever. Like, no, that game is fun to look at. Just on the face of it. They did so much with what they had.
Yeah, just oozing in charm.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so here's our real last question for the day. It is from @Wrangler212, who asks, who do you think wins the fight, Jimmy Lee from Neon RCG or Jimmy Lee from Double Dragon Revive?
I didn't play Revive, so I don't know that I can answer to that. I'm gonna look up footage of it right now.
It only came out like a couple of weeks ago.
And just make a snap. That would be why I didn't even. I was like, when did that come out? So that's
Yeah, I've got it
perfect.
sitting here right next to me. I haven't even played it yet.
They look very handsome. They're less goofy than our versions.
Yeah. To me, it's just more fun to see like iconic old school costumes. So to me, when I see that happen in my head, I see the more iconic looking Jimmy Lee have like more energy and passion. So I think that's my answer, is that the neon, fuck, what's it called? I'm so sorry.
Revive.
Yes.
I feel like
Yeah.
Arin Hanson's Jimmy Lee would start attacking before the Revive Jimmy Lee even knew they were in a fight.
Oh, if River City Girls is in this, if River City Girls Jimmy Lee is in this, then he wins every time, of course.
Agreed.
All right. Perfect. Good answer to end this on. I do think that will do it for today's show. Thank you so much, everyone who tuned in and listened and asked questions. Thanks a ton to Arin for taking the time to join us today, and Adam too, of course. As a reminder, the River City Girls 2 Double Dragon DLC is out now on pretty much everything, including Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox, Steam, and Epic. Who knows, maybe it'll even be on sale around Thanksgiving if you don't have it yet. Can't promise anything. Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp is also available now on Nintendo Switch. If you are in Southern California near the Valencia area, please stop by the SCV Collectibles Show where we have a permanent booth. We will be there, I believe, this weekend, maybe tomorrow, and throughout Saturday and Sunday, selling games and exclusive collectible cards and other merch. And of course, there are tons of other vendors there with action figures and comics and trading cards and video games and all that good stuff. Arin, is there anything else you want to tell folks before we sign off?
Go play the Mummy Demastered. It fucking rules.
I agree. And if you want a physical copy, go to the SCV Collectibles. We actually have a few physical copies for sale.
Whoa, that's sick.
All right. Well said. See, it all dovetails together. That said, I think that is a show. Thank you again, and we will catch you next time.